We're live.
Well, thank you all, and I appreciate everybody joining us here. First, we'll establish that we have a quorum present here so we can begin the meeting. Starting with myself, Eric Lay, Ward 3 Rep. I'm here. Is Representative Best here?
I am.
Okay, and then Representative LaJoy Law.
Present. Good evening, everyone.
We actually, at this point, have a unanimous panel. I would like to also note that we have been joined by Perry, who's our new student representative, or about to be student representative when she's officially sworn in. So she's joining us as a guest at the meeting, and we'll certainly let her participate in these proceedings because we're excited she's joining us on the board. And then we have a number of guests who will introduce themselves, and we're delighted that they've been able to come and speak as panelists on this important issue today. So at this point, today is August 13th, 2025, and we are in the presence of a quorum with a unanimous panel. And we'll get going with the first item on the agenda so we can be respectful to the time of our panelists here. The first issue we're going to discuss is a panel on safety in school communities. We have Dan Davis, who's joined us from our Office of the Student Advocate. And then we also have, is it going to be Kimberly presenting, or is it going to be you, Charlotte, presenting tonight?
It's going to be me.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us. So, Charlotte, I appreciate you joining us to speak on behalf of the Ombudsman's Office. So, I appreciate you joining us. So, we'll get going here. Darren, do we have a order that the presenters are going to go in? I think the objective, we invited the presenters here, we talked about at the last working session, to discuss the issue of school safety. This came up because we heard that even though students did report feeling safer out coming to and from school, there was still a lot of concern amongst our students about safety issues within our schools. And what we wanted to do is hear from the experts on this who deal with constituents every day and learn from you on what you think the challenges are and how the board can help solve those so that students will feel safe in our schools. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to be here. We may have some brief questions for you, but the main thing we want to do with today's panel is hear from you to use your expertise to figure out how we can move forward in this issue. So thank you for joining us. And I don't know who's projected to go first. Darren, do we know who's going to be speaking first?
Representative Galate, before we do that, can we recognize Representative Colson? She came because I know she wanted to hear this panel on safety.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I would like to representative that we also have T. Michelle Colson, representative from Ward 4, who's also present with us today. And she is not yet a member of the committee, but we are excited she's joined us today, and hopefully she'll be joining us as a committee member in the fall, if she's willing to, if we make a good impression today. So thank you for joining us, Representative Colson. Mr. Davis or Miss Flournoy is how I say it, correct? Flournoy?
Correct, thank you.
Who would like to speak first? Do we have an order here? I'm
indifferent.
Okay.
I don't mind going first.
How about we start with the Office of the Student Advocate? They could talk about their safety work, and then we could jump to the Office of the Ombudsman.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
you.
I
gave co-host abilities to both offices, so you should be able to share your screen and the slides, but let me know if you encounter any issues with that.
Mr. Davis, the floor is yours, sir.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
We can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm joined by Natalie Powell from my team, who also is a student advocate, and she'll be co-presenting with me today. Nat, if you want to share your screen. It's not here. I thought I saw her earlier.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm just trying to give myself permissions to share.
But thank you guys for having us, and we're glad to be here today to talk about some of the work we've been doing around student safety. So we're going to talk about a few things tonight. We're going to talk about our student safety report from school year 23-24 that we recently released in 25. We're going to talk about our student safety community conversations that we've had this past school year through all eight wards. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the plans that we have for this year. So since 2016, our office has engaged in collaborative efforts to support the safety of students to and from school. And we've done that in a myriad of different ways. And we've been active in the student safety space and kind of St. Patrick's space since there was no funding to the place that we are now, where there's a lot of city investment in making sure students are getting to and from school. And we did that through just naturally building community with school, building community with students, building community with parents, building community with our public safety official stakeholders. And we really spent a lot of time making sure that their voices and their experiences are driving the recommendations that we push for. We'll move on to the next one. Yeah, so since 2019, we've been running our student safety. We've been running student safety surveys and focus groups every year except for 2021 when schools were out for COVID. We've done focus groups in school buildings with students. And every other year we release a student safety report. This past year we spoke to almost 700 folks, students and families, represent across almost all 8 wards, across charter and our traditional neighborhood schools. So there's around 51 DC public schools and 34 public charter schools where we had student safety focus groups in 23-24. And so when we asked students really about their experiences, what was different around this surveying was we began to ask them what were the solutions, what were the protective factors that were helping them feel safe. And so they disclosed a bunch of different things in some of the open answers. And one of the things that they did disclose were things that were challenging and problematic to the assumptions of students feeling safe. And a lot of things reflected a hypervigilancy that was becoming a norm, that was norming across the city, across grade bands, regardless when we talk to students. And so here on the screen, you'll see a few kind of things where students even though they said, yes, they felt safe in what they were doing to keep themselves safe, this is how they described themselves keeping themselves safe. So I'll let that sit in for a few seconds, but yeah, we can move on to the next one. Nat, you want to talk about the year-over-year?
Yep. So looking at our historical data from the past 5 years, we can see that students' levels of safety, sense of safety and comfort have shifted over the years, where as time has gone on, students are feeling more in danger and less safe in their travel to and from school. And later on in the report, we get into a few of the different reasons of why students share they feel that way. When we talked further to students, when they talk about what are those areas that are the most concerning to them, they share that it was community-based harassment and violence, street and gender-based harassment, traffic concerns, gang recruitment activity, and school-based harassment and violence. And students shared that there are many times where these safety concerns do cause them to miss some school. So a few of the recommendations that came out of that safety report was implementing a partial phone ban to limit bullying, harassment, increasing visibility of safe passage. A lot of the students shared that while they may see safe passage workers, they're not always seeing them as folks who are there to keep them safe. They either see them as people who are not always interacting with them, who may be more congregated together or on their phones. So a lot of students voice a desire to see more activity from their safe passage workers and to feel more connected to them. And for students who shared out that they really did feel much safer with their safe passage workers, were at school sites where safe passage was very active within the school community. And then we also recommended reimagining the student commute with the Better Bus Network revisions that have taken place. It did eliminate a lot of routes for students, which does create some gaps in those underserviced areas. And then we also called for an expansion to DC School Connect. We've seen a lot of success with that in Ward 7 and 8.
So part of the challenge with the Better Best Network reimagination is the elimination of stops and the WMATA's push to have a more equal distance between stops and more bus service on arterial roads, which means that more of our neighborhoods and more of our residential areas are getting less service. And for some students in some neighborhoods, that means putting themselves exposing themselves into more community challenges and neighborhood beefs. And so this past school year, one of the things that we did was our student safety community conversations. We did in-person conversations with students, families, teachers, school staff, all of our public safety officials, from Metro Police to our ONE's office and our Cure the Streets teams that were doing work in those communities. And we had those community conversations in places that were geared for families and geared for students. And so we did a lot of our work either in libraries, a lot of these conversations in community settings, and either at RECs or in some places in CBOs where they are located in communities. The goal of these conversations, beyond just connecting schools and families and public safety officials just to be in one room, was to really think about what are actionable solutions to those common and shared problems in their communities. I think one of the things that we've heard repeatedly throughout our conversations in different communities there's an isolation feeling of we're the only ones having this challenge or going through this experience in their ward, where in reality that it is very much a common problem and a shared experience, that the same challenges that they may be having in one part of Ward 8 are challenges that they're having in another part of Ward 8, and vice versa in different wards. Same challenges they may be having up in one part of Ward 3 are the same challenges they're experiencing in a lower part of Ward 3. And so it was really good for us to kind of have that connectivity, to be able to talk about these things and talk about shared solutions and shared community strategies.
Part of that.
Go ahead, Nat.
So part of that conversation to help families really ground and staying rooted in what are the solutions that we really can come up with in the space was to think about like this ecosystem of student safety and thinking about of which level you're operating at, whether you are school level, whether you are Metro Transit Police, and whether you're just a concerned community member, at what level can you participate? And then what questions are we rising from there to fill in the gaps that are existing?
Some of the key findings that we found across all wards, where there was no one size fits all approach that's going to solve all of our student safety problems in DC. There's no magic toolbox that we have that's going for the challenges that Ward 3 has that will work for the challenges in Ward 4, and the same thing for the challenges that are in Ward 4, where those solutions won't necessarily work, or solutions or problems that are occurring in Ward 5 or 7 or 8. And so we really, part of the thinking of that is really focusing on recreating that tight-knit community that helps students feel safe. Community members identified safe passage workers and access to after-school programs as initiatives that have worked well in keeping students safe, as initiatives that students enjoy, as initiatives that families enjoy, and that there's a lot of confidence in there. School leaders expressed an interest in creating ward-specific student safety directories, including our resource banker providers who have availability and capacity for pro bono services, i.e. psychological and legal services. So schools require additional materials and infrastructures from camera posts, especially in small corridors or some of our smaller buildings where there are not necessarily enough staff members to man all all corridors are are student transport places in buildings. Really enjoy the use of strong security cameras, flashing lights and drop-off pickup zones to kind of help make those areas a lot more safer. Replacing and upgrade X-ray machines. And one of the things that actually was true across all wards were better walkie-talkies that connect with neighboring schools and safe passage ambassadors if they have them. Another finding was the need for expanded interagency collaboration and ongoing information sharing. The need was expressed probably across from all school leaders to have real-time information to make decisions on whether or not to delay recess, to keep kids in, to notify parents around incidents that are occurring in the community. Just a need to be able to have information to make decisions on what to do next. And lastly, one of the commonalities was a need for a stronger cross-sector leadership meetings to discuss safety updates and concerns. So our current work portfolio, one of the things that we are doing, we're participating in almost all the school safety calls, from the DC Charter Alliance call, the Safe Passage, DPMSJ Safe Passage calls, MPD, and also a charter school leaders call. We have bi-weekly check-ins with the DME team to talk about student safety. We serve on the Students in the Care of DC work group, as well as the core education work group. Would you like to go?
So looking towards this year and just where we plan to take this work next, we are shifting back to doing our student safety focus group. So this past school year, we did our student safety community conversations where we were bringing in school leaders, all the different folks who are at play in that ecosystem of student safety. And this year we'll shift back to going into schools and talking to students directly about their perceptions of safety. And then we'll also be administering a safety survey that will kind of inform our next safety report. And that survey will be expanded to include more of the student experience. So expanding more to just beyond their perceptions of safety to their barriers to attendance, their behavioral health needs, and what is their sense of belonging in their school communities. And then we'll continue our request for assistance work with continuing to coach families and connect them to the resources that they need to feel safe while they're at school.
Taking the time, and if there are questions or we want to wait for after the ombudsman shares their presentation, we can do that as well.
I think it might be helpful to get both perspectives, unless you have to leave us, Dan. So let's let the ombudsman present as well, and then we can bring you both up and have discussion if that works. Can you stick around for a little bit?
Yep, not a problem.
And we'll try to be respectful of both your time. We won't ask endless questions here. So we'll turn next to the ombudsman's office then. Ms. Florney, can you, I think you're on mute right now.
Yes, I'm
here.
We
can hear you. Wonderful. Great.
Okay, give me one moment. Let me just share my screen. Ooh. And unfortunately, I don't see that option. Give me one moment.
We may need to give you permission here as an option. There's a button in the center of the screen with a little green arrow pointing upwards, or I guess the arrow is not green, but it's in a green box. So you may have to wiggle your mouse over the screen though to make it appear, because mine will disappear if you don't have it and it says share underneath it. It's like on my screen, it's right in the center.
Okay, hold on. It's blacked out on my screen, unfortunately. So,
let me see if I can. I'll make you a host.
Okay.
Actually, let me try this again because it should be able to.
Like I can see my cursor giving me options, but it's all blacked out on my computer screen. So I'm not sure what option I'm clicking on?
We could try to guess for it. I mean, if you go down right in the center of the screen and click share, that's the one you're looking
Okay,
for.
actually, thank you. I have
I
it
mean,
now.
at worst, it would give you reactions or Q&A. So
Okay.
you got it?
I think so.
And I'm happy to share my screen.
Darren?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I send you the PowerPoint and you share it?
I have it.
Okay, perfect.
I can pull it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Give me one moment and I will start that. Okay. Yeah, bear with me. I'm just gonna.
There's no rush. We are all in this together in terms of trying to get technology to work for us. So there's no rush.
Okay. Can all of you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
I
great.
can,
Yeah.
although it's got a hand that says Zoom is requesting to bypass the system private window picker. Can anybody else see that, or is that mine on my screen?
I can see that as well.
Okay.
Oh, uh-oh. I hit yes without finished reading it, so hopefully it
That's
didn't
okay.
mess up the recording or anything. All
No,
right,
it's fine.
Okay,
but I'm gonna scroll down.
perfect.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm seeing by scrolling or hitting next, it goes to the next file. Okay.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I send my regards from Kimberly, who could not be here tonight, but my name is Charlotte Flournoy, and I am the Senior Advisor for the Office of the Ombudsman for Public Education.
Oh my God. I have to get used to this. Okay.
So tonight we'll go over a brief overview of our office and some of our safety and discipline numbers for the school year 24-25, and some of the ways that we engage with our internal and external partners to ensure student safety. All right, and as many of you are familiar, we are an office made up of about 11 staff members. We have our ombudsman, Kimberly, our program associate, Deshae Willis, and we have 3 assistant ombudsmen, Bree Sullivan, Stephanie Arias, and Jen Souza Dowds. We also have the Special Education Hub Initiative, who's overseen by Hannah Blumenfeld Love, our program manager, Triana Downing, our community engagement coordinator, Diana Sanchez, and Jasmine Lopez, who are both our program support specialists. A little bit about what we do. The word ombudsman derives from a Swedish word, which is an entrusted person or representative for grievances. Our office operates independently of the state board, but offers confidential and impartial conflict resolution services for families as they navigate different educational conflicts throughout the District of Columbia. And what we do is we service families and school leaders in resolving school-based concerns. And I'll quickly go through some of the case topics that we see most frequently around academic process, attendance, safety, which we're here to discuss tonight, discipline, bullying, as well as communication and engagement, special education, enrollment, and resource needs. So when families reach out to our office, we have an intake system where they are greeted by an intake coordinator who does the screening, and their cases are then assigned to our assistant ombudsman, who go through the assessment, research, and resolution process to bring the case to closure and resolution. Some of the services that we can provide is information on local and federal education policies. We support families in navigating the educational landscape throughout the district. We offer strategies for resolving educational issues. We help families develop solutions to address their concerns. We promote positive collaboration between schools and families. We report patterns of concerns to SBOE leadership to address any systemic issues, and we serve as a resource for education-related information, and we provide strategies to help schools develop internal conflict resolution plans around restorative justice practices. Services we cannot provide, we do not advocate. We shout out our sister agency, the Office of Student Advocates, for all of the advocacy work that they do. We cannot breach confidentiality, nor conduct any informal or in-depth investigations. We cannot make management decisions for DC Public Schools, DC Public Charter Schools, or DC government, or create or change policies. And we cannot testify or participate in any formal grievances or formal processes. We do not offer any kinds of legal advice, and we remain impartial. So we do not determine any guilt or innocence, right or wrong, and we do not show favoritism by promoting a school community partner or any other organization. And here's some of the resources that our DC Special Education Hubs provides: virtual and in-person training, one-on-one support and communication, and online and hard copy resources. All right, now for our numbers. So we had a total of 790 touch points for the school year, including calls that we received as well as outreach events and connections that we made out in the community. 331 of our cases came out of DC Public Charter Schools, and 166 came out of, 331 of our cases came out of DC Public Schools, and 166 came out of DC Public Charter Schools, and 7 were non-public placement cases. And the cases by education level, our elementary school cases came in at the highest at 160 cases. We had 124 cases out of our high schools, 88 cases out of our middle schools, 81 cases out of early childhood, and 25 for other. Other can be daycares or adult continuation schools or private schools and institutions. All right, so now for the good stuff. For our safety-related cases, Ward 8 had the most safety-related cases, coming in with 39. Ward 5 had 31, and Wards 4 and 7 had 26. And to drill down on those safety cases a little bit more, as we think about bullying and discipline cases, there were 11 alleged bullying cases that came out of Ward 5 with 2 discipline cases. In Ward 8, there were 10 with 8 discipline cases. In Ward 7, there were 5 bullying cases with 4 discipline cases. And in Ward 4, there were 7 alleged bullying cases with 1 discipline case. And some of the ways that we engage with promoting safety and support for student well-being, we are committed to addressing concerns and prioritizing the safety for our students. So through collaboration and communication, we work with the schools, with the school leaders and bullying POCs, and help families feel empowered so that they have the tools that they need to respond effectively to challenges. And 3 of the resources that we offer, one being resolution and mediation services, that can be anything between facilitated conversations between families and schools, or shuttle diplomacy, or formal mediation. Or I'm sorry, informal mediation. And we also help families navigate bullying investigation assistance, because a lot of the families that reach out to our office, there is, and this is not to discredit some of the families, but just helping them understand the difference between how they define bullying and how the district defines bullying, and pointing them in the right direction with identifying the bullying POC at their school to either discuss their safety concerns, any disciplinary actions, and help with coaching around communication or safety plans. And we also have some comprehensive educational resources, which we'll show on maybe the next page. Darren, would you mind scrolling up? Yes. Okay, so we have some handouts that are in production now to help families understand the difference between bullying and conflict, and understanding the district's definition of what bullying is. We also have a suspension and expulsion one-pager that goes over the federal and local regulations and helping parents understand their rights and their rights to appeal. And we also have a training that we are launching this school year for school leaders and families to understand the difference between conflict resolution and how we can help them move from conflict to collaboration with effectively working with their school teams with either restoring fractured relationships or asking our school partners to reach out to us proactively if there are concerns about conflict within peers or even families and school leaders. So we're engaging our families and our caregivers, our LEAs, DC schools, DC Public Charter Schools, DC Charter School Alliance, Early Head Start programs, community organizations. We have a long list of partners that we are working with to ensure that the resources that we cannot offer in-house, they can also receive those resources outside of our office with our other community-based organizations. And we've been working closely with government agencies, including OSSI, DC Public Schools, and the Deputy Mayor's Office on education and safe passage. These are just some of the engagement events that we have coming up. I know that we want to speak more about safety, so we can skip through that. All right. And if you're interested in finding us in some of our community outreach events in the city, we have that information handy to you as well. And thank you for listening. And we're here to listen to how we can continue to promote safety for our students in the district.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for those really comprehensive and helpful presentations. If it's all right with everybody, we'd like to try to just ask some questions. Now, what I will do is I'll give members 5 minutes to ask questions, but that doesn't mean try to slip a question in at 4:55 because that'll be 25 minutes, and we want to be respectful to our guests tonight. Dan, will you and you, Charlotte, be able to stick around for those rounds? Okay, wonderful. Definitely. But we will try to stick to the time, and if it starts to go well beyond that, I will try to gently urge our colleagues to wrap it up. So what we'll do is we'll start with committee members. The first committee member that was here was Representative Best. So Representative Best, do you want to proceed with a 5-minute round of questions?
Can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really have too many questions, I guess, but I did wonder if we felt that there was some like underreporting of like the bullying cases and things of that nature.
From our perspective, yes. I think part of the challenge with the bullying cases is the way we define bullying in the district. It's been about 13 years since we've updated our bullying laws when the citywide bullying prevention policy laws went into effect. So a lot of things that
Dan, I'm not trying to interrupt you here. I don't know if I'm the only one hearing this, but it sounds like there's like a metallic ting that's making you hard to understand. And I could understand you perfectly before. So, perhaps there's some interference on your end. So can you try again there?
Is this a little bit better?
It's still, yeah, maybe if everyone else can go on mute, if anybody else, except
I can hear.
Best. Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't my imagination and my ears were ringing here. Okay, good. All right, so if everybody else can go on mute, and let's see if maybe that helps get rid of it.
How about now?
It's okay. Just keep going. I mean, it's still there, but we'll make it work.
Okay. Yeah. So the challenge is with the definition of bullying, and so a lot of things that will be that are not technically bullying, but have the same effect as bullying, be it harassment, be it some of the cyberbullying, are just don't necessarily fit into the elements of bullying that are passed, and that's kind of codified in law. And schools are very much, their policies and kind of their interventions are geared around responding to the law and being in compliance with the law, which doesn't necessarily create a great opportunity for families to feel that they're being heard or having that responsiveness that they're seeking.
Got it. And you said that these laws were passed 13 years ago?
Correct. So that was the bullying prevention task force was launched in 2012, and when the bullying prevention policies went into effect later on that year.
Got you. And so, one, I know this isn't necessarily what you were here to. I mean, yes, and right to talk about. But do you think that this is a policy that should actually be revisited?
Yes. So I think part of the challenge that we were seeing right now is the social media challenge. There's, when we passed the laws 13 years ago, there was no TikTok, there was no several of the kind of social media sites that students are using. Devices weren't as prevalent as they are. A video from 13 years ago is very different from a video now that's on someone's iPhone 15, and is shared very much way easier than what we kind of could have envisioned 13 years ago. And so I think part of the move to have the cell phone ban was to kind of stem some of this challenge, but the young people are young people and they will find ways to be young people.
Got it. I think that's super helpful because I think that gives us something to work towards also. I think I'm done. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate all the work that you all put in. I'm done, Eric.
Okay, thank you, Representative Best. Next, we'll turn to committee member LaJoy Johnson-Law for her round of questions. Representative Johnson-Law, you're on mute. We can't hear you at the moment, so you may want to come off mute. Representative Johnson-Law may be having some technical issues, so we'll come back to you, Representative Johnson-Law, and go to Representative T. Michelle Coulson next for her 5-minute round of questions.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here and for the presentation. It's definitely appreciated. I want to follow in the same vein the questioning about data, and the data that was shared was very helpful. So in the cases where bullying has been supported or identified, shall I say, what is happening with the student who is defined as the bullier? And the reason why I'm asking that, the big picture is we've heard families come to our public meetings and testify and say that they don't feel like they are being heard because the only option really is restorative justice. And that's not always appropriate. So I'm just wondering, of the data that you all shared when people are identified or cases have been defined as indeed a bullying situation, what is happening? What is the next step?
Yes, I can speak to that. So while our office does not conduct any formal bullying investigations, we do refer our families to either the care team through DC Public Schools or the bullying POC within their schools. And one of the things that we have realized based on some of the cases that we've had is there are supports around protecting the victim in terms of either classroom changes, a safety plan, or a safety transfer. However, in the case of the aggressor or the bullier in that case, there can be instances where there is, I can't think of a student placement transfer. It does get a little tricky with the charter schools because charter schools will typically refer the student back to their neighborhood school through DC Public Schools. And one of our policy recommendations for the previous school year was to have a charter network. So there's a safety transfer system within the charter schools. But what I do know is outside of restorative practice, outside of mediation, and outside of a safety plan, there are sometimes, depending on the gravity of the aggression, there are times where the aggressor is transferred out of the school.
Okay, thank you for that. And I want to build on that and take that a little farther, if I may. So you are correct. I'm a POC for bullying. I know that we investigate internally. If it is a protected class, then it is referred to the care team. But because you all deal with grievances and support families, it's been my experience that usually when the transfer is offered, it's offered to the victim, and it definitely is not offered to the perpetrator, if you will, or I'm sorry, I don't want to use that word, or the bullier, if you will, because of an IEP or a 504. So in situations like that where families have come to you all with grievances, can you speak about what has possibly been done and what some of the outcomes could look like or have looked like?
Sure. So again, we let them know what their rights are. We let them know which offices they should reach out to navigate and get assistance. I do know that when it comes to getting the alleged aggressor or the bullier removed from the school building, there typically requires legal action to be involved, a police report or a criminal report to happen to get that student removed from the building. Outside of that, again, we do help families navigate their options for either a safety plan or a classroom change or a separation plan between the students. Also, and this goes without saying, I think, for the alleged aggressor or the bullier, there are disciplinary infractions that and consequences that should also ensue.
Thank you. And this question is for Dan. My last question. When we have our focus groups, have we ever had one specifically for students who have been bullied? And if so, I'm curious what they think about the restorative circles or the responses that schools have been giving them when they feel like they have been the victims of bullying.
So that is part of the revamp of the focus groups this year, is to have more specific communities of students to get a more cleaner snapshot of their experience. In the survey tool that we do use, we do ask around students who have experienced bullying, kind of what were the protective factors that did work. Was there a caring adult that you have? What are the things that kind of help you feel safe again? But we haven't necessarily talked to students who were deemed the aggressor. And to kind of piggyback off of Charlotte's point around the bullying for students that are, I believe that are in maybe potentially like a self-contained classroom or have an IEP, there is a process for those students to receive student discipline, and part of that process is going through an MDR if that behavior reaches a level of exclusionary discipline. But I think the overall challenge for students that are the aggressor is really finding a place that's appropriate for that student to go, and having capacity in the schools in our school system, be it DCPS or charter for those students.
Thank you so much.
Is Representative Johnson Law on yet?
Sorry, guys, I'm here. Another call.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're back. All right. Terrific. I think we may have had you on mute before. So, Representative Johnson Law, it's your turn for a 5-minute round of questions or comments.
My comments are, number one, thank you all for coming to our committee meeting and presenting to us. Appreciate everything that you all are doing. I've worked closely with you all before I got elected, and now that I am elected, I am working closely with you all, and I just really appreciate everything that you all are doing. I don't know if this is appropriate, but my question is, like, with everything that's going on in the city, like, are you all prepared to give any type of guidance to families and students about, making sure you guys carry IDs, being safe as you're, how are we working with Safe Passage? Parents, like, how are we making sure that we ensure we know where our kids are. Are you all going to be delving into any of that work? Because all of our schools are about to be affected. And I'm wondering, is that going to affect the numbers of calls that are coming into this office?
We are planning on being responsive to the increased federal presence, law enforcement presence that's going to be in the city for the potential next 30 days. I think one of the things that we are going to do is rely on some of the language that we use when we notice WMATA reliance on private security guards on Metro Station, and that is kind of to coach parents on kind of, you know, what is appropriate behavior in and out of the system, and kind of what things and how your rights change in those settings. So not necessarily, even though it is a public space, it's also there is a different level of expectations of privacy when you're on the Metro platform. And so similar to kind of that, we'll figure out language that's similar to that will be supportive of young people and families that are, you know, navigating to and from school.
Okay, because this is a federal situation, and how we deal with those who are in the federal government and even potentially the military is very different than how we're working with Metro Police and even private institutions. I know you guys have a great like Know Your Rights campaign that you all do, so maybe like doing those, you know, in hitting each ward. I don't mind going first. I'm gonna submit. I'm just gonna like Ward 8 to go first, but I will, if we can. And again, I know that's more work on everybody's plate, so I'm not going to put more work on you and not offer myself up to volunteer to help. So I don't mind helping with that, especially if I'm putting up Ward 8 first. I don't mind helping coordinate those efforts for Ward 8.
We'll do. We'll definitely we'll be in contact offline.
Thank you. And Charlotte, thank you so much for what you all are doing. Is the Ombudsman doing anything? Well, I guess to you and Hannah. Is Hannah on here or no? Am I tired?
She's not.
Okay,
No, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired. Charlotte, so is the Ombudsman or Hannah doing anything more robust, especially with everything happening with the Department of Education and everything that's going on with special education and those things? Are there going to be, again, maybe same question, like more like Know Your Rights, whether it's webinars or in the ward? Are you all going to be visiting, doing like ward Know Your Rights with SPED or anything of that nature that's coming up? And if not, can we get those on the books?
So what the SPED Hub is rolling out for the upcoming school year is additional training and resources for our families in terms of conflict resolution for our special education demographic, as well as our general education demographic. We're also rolling out trainings, but the Special Education Hub has increased their number of online trainings and resources that they're going to offer to families around how to navigate the special education system. I don't have a direct answer for you in terms of how that relates to the complexities of what's going on with the Department of Education, but we can definitely chat online and I can get you some specific information after touching base with Hannah.
Great, thank you so much. And Representative Goulet, I'm gonna yield. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm gonna yield the rest of my time.
You have 3 seconds.
Again,
3 seconds, so that's perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Thank you all so much again.
Okay, next we'll go to soon-to-be Representative Chamberlain for her 5-minute round of questions.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll keep this very short. I will say that I'd like to inquire on what improvements to Safe Passage would look like for the upcoming few school years. I have not had personal interactions with Safe Passage workers, but I worked pretty closely with the student advocates on their student advisory council at BARD DC this past summer, and they agreed that Safe Passage was a favorable presence in their neighborhood and where their school is situated. So I'd like to know how we can capitalize on that program as much as we can, and what specifically the Office of Student Advocate, what are you seeing might be gaps in Safe Passage, and how can we use the resources that we currently have best possible yes, shout out to BARD. They're doing a great job with their student voice. It's great.
So I think part of the safe passage work is a learning curve and getting everyone up to speed, because right now the way safe passage, there's many different providers in the safe passage work, and different providers provide a different level of service, and we're trying to normalize that as much as possible. So there's a lot more training that safe passage workers are going through this summer, and getting ready for this coming school year. In addition to that, I think one of the things that we've seen are places where we've seen safe passage work well, in the footprint, like the BARD, Congress Heights, Johnson footprint. They have a really strong safe passage program that's kind of paired with really strong school leadership and really strong buy-in from the community. So they have a very robust network that we like to see emulated other places. Similar to, but I can't remember the new name of Tyler, but the Tyler over in Ward 6, they have Chisholm has a very good safe passage program that's connected in with the Digital Pioneers community right there. So between the Potomac Avenue, Eastern Market Metro, and that Barracks Road footprint, they have a very strong communication channel, a very strong real-time support network that helps them work. And so we're trying to get to replicate those successes in different places. One of the challenge, I think one of the things that they rolled out last year was the roving safe passage model. So not necessarily dedicated just straight to one school community, but moving throughout a community where you'll see safe passage workers less stationary. And so there's that approach. I think they're going to kind of augment that a little bit more this year to have a little bit increased connectivity to school. But I believe there's a lot of work that still needs to kind of occur with building safe passage supervisors, safe passage workers, familiarity with school leaders and kind of school culture and school norms. And so I think as that gets built out, we'll begin to start seeing some of the rewards of repeated contact and relationship building, and kind of the things that create a tight-knit community that leads to increased safety for everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for coming and giving your time and energy to the purpose of DC students. Yay. I'm going to give the rest of my time back to everyone else, because I'm pretty sure I'm out at this point.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And I'll put a clock on myself too, to keep myself honest here. So my first question in looking at this was, you talked about only 31% of students feeling safe in school year 23-24, and we saw that trend getting worse each year. The DC Policy Center came in and spoke with the state board. I don't know if you had an opportunity to hear that presentation, and they presented like we were having improvements for the most recent school year. I was wondering when your data for 24-25 has come out, and are you seeing any of the efforts that were put in having a positive impact to turn that number around for the most recent school year? I think
you're on mute.
So the challenge with school year 23-24 was also right after we saw the spike in fiscal year 23 of kind of crime and violence, and we just saw a lot of challenges. And so what we're essentially seeing in our data is that lag of, this is what I experienced the last time I had something where we were asking about student safety and kind of student challenges. And so that's what's driving that lag. This past school year, we didn't do as many survey because we knew we were going to be doing it this coming year, and we want to spend more time doing those kind of community conversations, with those larger community conversations. And we did see kind of overall, an increase, anecdotally, this increase of students feeling safer, expressing, a desire to use their fuller self, and kind of a decrease in kind of hypervigilancy. Conversely, though, we did still see some of the same challenges around, I guess when early evening, kind of when it gets dark outside, decreasing in programming, and a need for an alternative that allow students to feel safe after it gets dark out when it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock when students are kind of getting out of OST programming, athletics, or whatever.
Okay. And you brought up, I can't recall which of you brought it up, but I think it was a really good point about the coordination with WMATA on the bus routes, because changes to bus routes, although they may seem minor to WMATA, like a 3-block difference could put a child into a neighborhood where there's a feud or there's conflict. So how do we communicate more effectively with WMATA to alert them to an issue like that, where like a change to a travel route may adversely impact students who are going into an area which there may be a conflict going on with the neighborhood?
So I think there's a few channels that are probably the most productive and kind of best way to kind of communicate with WMATA is one, through the school principal. Most school principals are participated in the kind of the DC Transportation kind of network, DC Transportation Working Group, where we talk with WMATA, quarterly around kind of what things are happening as far as buses, what's happening as far as trains. And they're very responsive to the need to be like, hey, we need more buses on this route, and can we increase the frequency on any certain route? The second would be the WMATA Youth Advisory Council. I think it's actually ran by with the Metro Transit Police, where they meet monthly, where they really are, engaging with young people around their experiences on WMATA. We've seen young people go in there and kind of say, like, this is a problem. We don't like officers when they have the full tactical gear on. If they're going to be, during a dismissal on arrival, can they just be in regular uniform wear without the full tactical gear suit on? And we've seen kind of immediate changes and reflections in that. But the challenges there. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and that's a big concern I have too with the increased federal presence, because I think you raise a great point there, in terms of the training and interactions with officers can either be positive or negative based upon kind of either an officer's look or an officer's training, and having federal presence with federal law enforcement who's not trained in dealing with youth concerns me greatly. I mean, having the National Guard, having representatives from the FBI out there in the communities, potentially interacting with our students. I mean, that's really concerning. So if you could, if you're hearing of incidents that are adverse in that, please, let us know about that and keep us in the loop, because I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dan, but if you could, because that's something that I'm alarmed by, that we have that potentially taking place.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of folks that are alarmed and are concerned around kind of what's that going to look like, and kind of how is that going to be experiencing for students. I haven't heard anyone with a clear strategy on kind of what's going to come next. To Representative Johnson Law's kind of point, something needs to be kind of provided that's a little bit more clear than what's been provided in the past 2 days.
Well, I'd like to thank you both. I'll just end with a brief comment and kind of the path forward on this. I mean, what I hope to do is in the next 3 months, try to work with you all and work with our SAC to put together some solutions to these issues that are actionable. And I think we could have a resolution on that, potentially have some accompanying legislation, and it could even take the form of a report too that kind of outlines why we're doing what we're doing. But if you and the Ombudsman's office can look, kind of give us your ideas for actionable solutions that we can implement, I think that would be really helpful. I mean, one thing that was mentioned today that concerns me is, and I think you highlighted it well, was the difference between bullying versus conflict. And I think, like right now with restorative practices, I get a lot of complaints from parents, for example, that's being used in incidents of bullying, where I think it was intended more for incidents of conflict, where there's two similarly situated individuals. So I think what, I've talked to some of my colleagues on the committee about is trying to look at discipline, looking at student accountability in a way that is thoughtful and not punitive. Then that we kind of bring the pendulum to the right place, but we don't swing it too far in the wrong direction. And I'm taking that quote from Representative Best, I'll attribute that to him for using it at the last meeting. I think it's a very thoughtful way to think of it. So I just want to thank you both again. And if either you or Charlotte have any final comments, please go ahead. But we look forward to working with you over the next few months on this and making it a focus of the fall for sure.
Definitely. Thank you for inviting us. I would like to just let you all know that we are drafting our annual report with some policy recommendations around safety. So not to spoil too much of what's going to be published in the fall, but please do look out for our annual report to see some of the policy recommendations that we have specifically for safety around community and within the school buildings.
We look forward to that, and if you can, let's work together on those. We're not going to out them before you officially release the report. Maybe you can do it on an embargoed basis, but I would be good to try to get a package together on this issue, because what I would like to do is put something out there that can then get a hearing, maybe from DC Council coming up before the budget season starts again. So I would like to move quickly and work in partnership with both you and the Office of Student Advocate on this, and certainly with our president of the board, Representative President Patterson, as well on this. So thank you all for coming out. Anything else from you, Mr. Davis?
I just want to say thank you guys for having us. I know we shared with you guys an advanced copy of the memo for the ward-based student safety conversations, as well as the release copy of our student safety report. So if there's anything in there that we want to talk more about, please, we can set up an individual time, grab coffee and talk through it. And again, thank you to Natalie Powell for joining me this evening and helping with the presentation.
Thank you too, Natalie. I didn't mean to leave you out. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for the work you do advocating and representing our students. So thank you all for coming out. And you're welcome to stay on for the rest of the meeting if you like, but you're also welcome to leave us, and we certainly won't be offended by that. So it's up to you. So the next issue, the next item on the agenda, it appears we've covered here. I think some of these issues, were covered in the discussion. So perhaps we don't need to go through them further. We talked about school safety and discipline I'm seeing here on the agenda. And Dr. Fleischer, chime in anytime you want to correct me. I feel like we talked about that. I think we talked about the Student Fair Access to School Act, is part of that discussion. And we're going to obviously require further discussions on that as part of the committee. And, then talking about recommendations related to public safety and SROs. I mean, that's something I'd like to think about, but as part of a comprehensive package. So I think all of this needs to be done comprehensively. Does anybody have comments? And without objection, I guess I'll move those items out of order because they kind of flow better with the conversation we just had. So I'm going to put them ahead of the kindergarten age cutoff policy update. So I'll move the items on the agenda: school safety and discipline, the Revisit Student Fair Access to School Amendment Act, the school safety and discipline panel discussion, and then the Revisit the SRO recommendations. We'll just move those together, and without objection, we'll talk about those next and then come back to the kindergarten issue. If any objection to doing that? Okay, hearing none, let's open the floor on those issues, and if anybody has comments they'd like to make, just feel free to speak. And I also would like to acknowledge that there was an excellent memo talking about the dangers of vaping that was included with the package here. And that's something I think that as we look at discipline issues, the issue of contraband and vaping in our schools is something important to look at, because there's really serious addictive impacts to that on our youth. So with that could also be a subject of this discussion. So would anybody like to start, or maybe this will be just part of the ongoing discussion? So I'll open the floor to whoever would like to talk next. Okay, well, hearing nothing at this point, what we'll do is we'll keep those on the front burner as things we talk about as part of this comprehensive package, but we wanted to alert folks that those will be part of the conversation tonight. So the next thing I asked to be placed on the agenda, which is just since it's within the committee, to give an update on the kindergarten age cutoff policy issue. This was something that I spent way more time than I ever expected to last spring. It was an issue where DCPS was forcing students to skip kindergarten, go directly to first grade. They retaliated against a number of families who spoke out by referring them to the Child Family Services Agency for child neglect, which I thought was completely inappropriate, and I still think is completely inappropriate. And we drafted legislation, we adopted it, as a board and sent it to council. Now, there was discussions about moving it. We actually had meetings with several members who expressed interest, but ultimately several members decided to write the chancellor, and the chancellor agreed to a process by which they would evaluate the students prior to the start of the school year, which was, I think, important. So the students took the exams. The students, since they weren't proficient and hadn't gone to kindergarten, failed the exams. And then DCPS said that the students must attend first grade anyways, and that they must still skip kindergarten even though they were found to not be proficient. I am horrified by the decision making on this. I think it's very problematic, and I've really lost a lot of confidence in the leadership of our schools with how all of this has been rolled out, from the inadequate communication to the retaliation, and then to really what I feel is like a bait and switch in terms of the testing, which I think was just done to avoid our bill moving at council. So I have several families right now who've gone to private school. They've given up on the system. They don't want to be part of DCPS anymore. And that's certainly understandable given the way they've been treated. And then others are still fighting, and they're still trying to see how they can get their kids to be able to go to kindergarten. The other thing that we're left with is the worst policy in my mind for kindergarten age of enrollment in the country. No other state has a policy like ours, where we're putting 4-year-olds into kindergarten but not giving developmental waivers even for a period of months. It's a true outlier in the country and is not recommended by any early educators at all. So we've got a lot to try to tackle on that. I want to make the safety the focus of this, but I think that's very problematic, and it will be something I continue to handle on an individual basis. I think the recommendation I would have is that we actually hear from some early educators about what a sensible kindergarten enrollment policy is. I feel like having a relatively narrow age band, so you don't have a 24-month age band like you do sometimes see in Virginia in kindergarten, but you also have exceptions for students with developmental delays, students who may be premature births or emotional delays are allowed to be able to advance to kindergarten at a stage that's developmentally appropriate. So I think there's a lot of work to do there. I don't want to belabor it today because we are not going to have time to solve it, but I'm willing to open the floor if anybody else would like to make comments on that issue at this time. Okay, hearing nothing else on that, we'll move on to the next item, and I'm going to turn to Dr. Fleischer on this one to talk about the progress. This is, I think, something that's really exciting, and the idea for these student listening sessions came partially. I was always impressed that my mentor and former chair of the council, Vince Gray, would sit there in the council chamber for an entire Saturday once a month to hear from youth in the city about whatever issue was on their mind. And I think that was just really beneficial for the youth to be able to come in and speak, advocate. And it was really useful for policymakers to get to hear from our youth about the challenges and they're facing or the ideas that they have for improving our system. The other thing that got me thinking about this is we have such interest at our SAC last year that oftentimes I would get into a meeting to talk about our resolutions there, and we wouldn't even have time to hear from all the people who wanted to ask a question or make a comment in that meeting. So this would also be a forum for our SAC students. I mean, I see Representative Chamberlain. She always got her take in on this and even got an amendment passed. But we had students who didn't get a chance to have their voice heard. So this would be an opportunity for them to come in at a hearing and actually testify before the board. And I think it's just really valuable because I think our SAC is going to be such a useful tool for hearing student voice. And this is another way to have that. I think we're going to start these online to think small and then maybe start expanding them in person. So I'm really excited about this. I'll let Dr. Fleischer explain kind of the next steps on it though.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just share my screen. Actually, yeah, let me share. I could find, oh, I see. Bear with me. I'm going to try this again. So I'm just sharing the overall draft of this that we discussed offline, and are continuing to work on. I don't know why I can't expand this a little bit, but it's really strange. Okay, let me go full screen. All right, so we've completed the planning of this and identifying the purpose. And I'll share this after the meeting, but essentially just finalizing these dates for the first listening session, which would be virtual, as I understand it, and then using the first one to look for any gaps in representation of students, and using the second session to go to the schools themselves, or like to after school or wherever they congregate, whatever the gaps are, the C committee members and I would get together and try to hear from students within their schools. And from there, um, I I would say it would be about a week long, and so just making sure that these dates are correct. So February 3rd, if we want to do it a week long or a week and a half, this is something we could work on online, or I could get your feedback on now. And then after this, just tying everything together with the report. I could zoom in a little bit more.
In the report, Dr. Fleischer, that's the report we do at the end of every committee year, right? So we're just bringing it into we're not doing a separate report on the listening sessions. We're incorporating that into our committee report.
It would be incorporated it would just be a standalone report. We could make mention to it in the annual report, but it would be just part of the committee's work.
Yeah, I mean, just to be respectful of your time, I don't want to add things to your plate. Certainly, I think putting it in as part of the annual report we do would be sufficient, because, a lot of the students are going to be coming in with individual testimonies. I think certainly we want to be responsive to each of those, but I don't know that you need to have a comprehensive report detailing that testimony person by person. I think having that part of the committee's work, I think in the annual report would be sufficient. But I think that's something we can continue discussing. It's just an idea to try to take some pressure off you and the staff at the board.
Let's circle back on that. The tricky thing is with that report, the annual report, it's just so short, so it would be just a short blurb. But this could be something internal as well, and something like I spoke with Hannah Mason at the DC Policy Center today, because they're doing their listening sessions, and I'm just getting a feel for how this can help other agencies and partner organizations with their own work. So just maybe as we lead up to the first one, maybe thinking about how we can use the information and share that information. I think especially before we start the listening session, definitely knowing how we're going to use the information and how it will be used. How it will be used, and what will be the follow-ups.
The other thing I would like us to do, and I have some of this data myself, I think you have the rest of it for students who applied for SAC but weren't selected but didn't ask to be student reps, is to look at what the priorities of the students are too, because I think that may help drive our work on this committee. So, and even may help, structure the listening session. So we have the top 3 priorities of every student who applied to either be a rep or a member of SAC. So if there's a way we could aggregate that, I think it would help inform, this committee, and then help inform the student leadership at SAC as well, to be able to kind of look to see, here's what the priorities of the students were coming in. So if that's something we can do, I'd love to help put that together. I have some of it already, but it'd be good to get the entirety of it.
Okay. Yeah, and I can share this after the meeting as well, but that makes sense.
Okay, great. I mean, the schedule looks great to me. Let's open the floor for discussion on it. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make to the to the strategy there? In the first session, we would be doing virtually, right? And then considering whether to do the next one potentially in person if we get interest, right?
Yes.
Any comments, ideas, changes that we would want to make to this schedule or this process? Or just praise for Darren's work. That's also good too on this. All right, it looks great. So we don't need to take an official vote on that. So let's move to the next item on the agenda. I'm going to bring my chat back up.
And before we move on, could I just
Yes.
share what this is in relation to the our work plan, our overall work plan? So we do have so that would sit as one of the priorities for the listening session. And so I just wanted to share out that that section is complete. And then this was put on the back burner. Conduct to student engagement. That's where this lies. I just wanted to frame that for one part of the overall work of the C committee.
Yeah, and I'd also like to, Representative Johnson Law has been a real champion on priority 3 there. So maybe she and I can sit down and talk about what, this committee year we can try to get done on this issue. I know special education is also a priority for the graduation requirements, but it would be good to look at, issues involving out of school time and other priorities she has in terms of making sure we have inclusive spaces for our special education students. So I'll be glad to work with you on that, Representative Johnson Law on priority 3. Do you want to scroll down?
Representative Goulet, I appreciate it.
I just didn't want it to get missed because I know that's something that you are passionate about and is a priority that we cannot shortchange in this at all. So Representative
Thank you.
or Dr. Fleischer, do you want to share the rest of those?
Yeah. Give me one moment.
Okay, I only could see the first 3.
Find it. Let me see. That is strange. Where did it go? Okay, give me one moment. I'm just going to.
Well, without objection, let's just, while you're trying to get that back up, if it takes a moment. Oh, it's back.
So yeah, it's priority 3. We have not really started yet. This is updated. So we voted on the charter school sports resolution, PKEEP letter, no longer needed for that.
We did get the funding in. That's the important thing, is that the funding was maintained for the pre-keep
Yes.
at that point. So that's good. That was good news.
Yep. And so that is about it. And we could continue adding to this.
Yeah.
But priority 6 was
I mean, is safety on there? Because that to me is the largest priority. Student safety, discipline, and then the special education along with it. I think we need to look at that separately.
We can add that. So that would be priority 7, which would be part of the panel of just
and I think we have somewhere an expanded version of this, which is my favorite version of it, but that's floating around too. And I think that's got the safety issues on there. So we can just port them back over to this thing if we need to. But this looks great.
Yeah.
Any comments for Dr. Fleischer on this this list of priorities? And once we get the full committee together, what we can do is discuss, adding things to this because we'll have student reps that are being added to our committee as well. So any comments on this at the moment?
I have a bit of a comment. I have more of a question of who can we bring in? Is there a way that we can get thoughts from special education staff at DCPS on that priority because I have some contact with the principal at River Terrace, and I have a strong feeling that she would love to be able to have some insight on that. Is there a way?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I would love to invite her to one of our committee meetings. I mean, you obviously would have the ability to invite her to SAC as well, but I would love to have her come to the Student Experience and Engagement Committee. The one thing I will mention on this is that we have a variety of ways from hearing for. We could have a roundtable, which would be a joint roundtable between this committee, SAC we could put on there, and we could also put on the College and Life Readiness Committee, College Career. I always mess up the name of that committee, the CCE committee. But what this committee's purview is limited to is really issues of the student experience. So, like for instance, like graduation requirements for students with special needs would not be part of this committee's purview. So, it might make sense for us to, if we wanted to have that type of panel discussion, to either have it at the full board level, which is an option at one of our public meetings, or to have a special roundtable on it. There could be a joint committee roundtable. And I'm open to any of those approaches, but I think it would definitely be a valuable discussion to have.
Thank you.
Representative Goulet, could I jump in?
Yes, please. Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. I'm being annoying. There. Oh, no, wait. I'm annoying. Sorry, guys. I'm multitasking and parenting. Wait, let me just put this. I'm trying to put it on speaker, but like, it won't let me.
Yeah, we're not annoyed at all.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Can we do the roundtable idea? And the reason I'm thinking about the roundtable is to also include perspective of our students who have special needs at a charter school. And so
I think it's a good idea.
And so I'm wondering, like, could we, you know what I mean? The roundtable we could include different perspectives and have the principal at River Terrace, and you know, it's more voices and trying to figure out like how we can be more of a help to our students with special needs.
And I think that allows also for a more in-depth discussion of the issue than we would have time for at the public meeting. So
right.
I fully support that. I think maybe what we could do, if it works for you, Representative Chamberlain, is maybe we'll bring this idea up at the next working session to discuss the idea of even maybe a joint roundtable with the CCE committee, so that we can kind of have a broad discussion on the issue.
I like it. I'm in.
All right. Fantastic. So I don't think we really need to move a formal motion to do that. We can just put it on the working session agenda and make sure that it's something that we discuss there. Okay. Any further on this topic that anybody would like to discuss? Okay, I'll go back to the agenda. Well, trying to get this done in an hour and a half. That was our goal, and we're coming up upon it. So the next issue that we had was, and I'll make this very brief, is just the nurse staffing issue. We as a board expressed concern about the 54% reduction we saw in RNs over a single school year last year. There's been a change in the model where they moved it from children's contracting now to making them full-time employees of the school system. That may have a positive or negative effect, but I'm very interested to see the level of RNs. One concern that we heard is that if we continue to see RNs flee our system, that they'll be covering so many schools under the cluster model that they really won't be able to give appropriate attention and coverage to the health technicians or the LPNs that are working at those schools, and that could potentially create licensing issues. So that's something I would like to take the letter that we've previously written and then send back to get updated data for the school year early on, once we can find that out. So what I can do is I can work with Dr. Fleischer, just take last year's letter where we asked for the data, and then bring it before the committee at next month's meeting to request data for the upcoming month. Does that work for everybody? Okay, great. So we'll do that then, and then try to get data, and then we'll see. Maybe we have good news, or maybe we have alarming news about the nurse staffing levels that we see at our schools. The last item on the agenda here is a vote on, I believe this is going to be a vote, Representative Best, on your SR 25-11, establishing a civics learning week in DC schools. I'd like to commend Representative Best for his work on this with Dr. Fleischer. I think it's a really great idea. I think civics is very important in our schools. So, Representative Best, I'll turn it over to you to discuss the resolution, and then we'll vote to transmit it out of committee to the next working session if you're ready to proceed.
Hey, Eric. Sorry, Representative Goulet.
That's okay.
So actually, in an earlier discussion, I kind of wanted to shift the conversation to strike this right now and kind of focus on some of the things that we're seeing right now happening um, with the federal takeover. And I just wanted to open discussion about like what it is that we could possibly do to align on guidance. I've reached out to our the OAG. I have not received any response yet, but I do think that we should, especially in this committee, start to think about what it looks like to provide our family members and our community members with guidance as far as like what are some things that you can do to keep yourself safe, understanding the difference between federal laws and local laws. And so I did speak to Darren earlier about this. Sorry if I didn't, if I wasn't better at reaching out to shifting it with everyone else. But I do think that because this is so timely, I would like to get that to put something on in the works for that.
I think that's a great idea. So let's do the following then on that, so we can have a discussion on this issue. Let's rather than strike it, because I think we do want to potentially come back to the Civics Week issue, and we want to stay in committee. So if it's okay with you, Representative Best, let's move to table it. And then what we can do is when you're ready and you want to have that discussion before next year, we can bring it off the table, and then we can just immediately then proceed back to that discussion.
Yeah, and because
and then we can move to the next item you just discussed as an item of new business and talk about that. Does that work?
Yeah, so I'll move to table it.
Okay, motion to table is on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, the vote is unanimous, 3-0. The motion or the proposal for the Civics Week is currently tabled and can be brought off the table at a later time. So that's tabled at this time. The next item we'll discuss, item of new business raised by Representative Best, is discussing, and you already introduced the subject, is things this committee can do and this board can do on communicating the concerns with related to the federal actions. So Representative Best, did you want to say more on this agenda item?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to think through like what else that could look like. Like I said, I've reached out. I haven't received any response. I don't know if anyone else here has any or better relationships within the office of the OAG who may be able to get some type of response. But I definitely think that we should provide our students with some of that guidance, especially seeing as though I know, I'm here near Navy Yard, and that's been a hot spot for a little while where our students have, come and done like meetups where all types of things happen. And I really just don't want them to be in a scenario where they are maybe even out past curfew, and that gives, the officers the opportunities to do whatever it is that they're doing. Things such as that, even things such as like, marijuana, obviously, we're hoping that they're not smoking in general, but we know that in DC, it had basically been not decriminalized, it really wasn't enforced. However, we do know that it's also a federal offense. And we have a lot of federal officers who are running around right now. And so I think I think it's our duty to also make sure that we can spread some type of information to our families and our communities about what's going on and how to keep our kids and our families safe. Because ultimately, if our families are arrested or taken, that also puts our students in jeopardy as well.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it will be a good topic to have, at the next working session. I'd be glad to have that discussion there. I'll recognize Representative Johnson Law in a minute. Just I'll give you my brief thoughts on the issue. I saw Representative Best, you raised the issue of the marijuana, I think, on one of your social media accounts, which I think was very timely, because what we don't want to see is, our residents who may know that under local spaces, marijuana has been decriminalized, but then are using it on federal property and then, are arrested and charged as a federal offense by officers who are patrolling those areas now. So I think that's a big concern that could affect our students too, who could be using marijuana, on federal land, not knowing that that's going to get them in serious trouble. So that's a concern to me. And then I mentioned it generally before. I am not comfortable with the idea of having National Guard, FBI, federal law enforcement involved with community policing. I think that is something that, the success we saw from 2011 to 2014 in terms of bringing down crime was by having 4,000 trained police officers who were experts in interacting with the community, developing community relationships, and were trained to deal with individuals. And I really do worry about particularly federal officials who don't have that training interacting with our youth. So I think any communication that we can get out through our schools and our principals to families, who have youth would be really helpful in this area, because I really worry about some adverse situation where federal officials are, treating our youth in a way that we would not expect our police officers to, and it's concerning. So I'll turn to Representative Johnson-Law next, if you'd like to add anything to that.
Thanks, Representative Goulet. I wanted to respond to Representative Best's comments. I think Cure the Streets is under the OAG. I've reached out to one of their contacts that help us in Ward 8 with their violence interrupter program. And I talked with him about okay, we need to really get ahead of this and just do some type of training. I think this is beyond even a know your rights. It's this is what we do and this is what we don't do, especially when we are dealing with federal law enforcement or the military.
Yeah.
And so it's heightened all of this. And so I'm waiting to hear back. And so I was just going to say, I've reached out and I was going to let you know what I hear.
Okay, yeah, please let us all know on that. That would be really helpful to start the conversation that way. And I agree. I think, it may be helpful also to reach out to the city administrator and the public safety division just to see if they've got guidance on this. Because I'm not even certain right now, which of those programs would be getting the word out to people, whether it be OAG, whether it be people in the mayor's office, or whether that's been subsumed.
And also too, just with us in our individual capacities, I'm also taking it upon myself. If there are different agencies who are giving, no offense, wishy-washy information, or are giving just mediocre or just very non-informal information where it's okay, here's just a little bit and that's all we can say, then I think it's on us as a community and as us who represent our community to be look, this is what we do. This is what we don't do. This is the behavior that they are looking for, and we don't want you to get caught up and taken away. And so I'm just going to implore us to also to work with our government agencies. But if they don't step up, then I think we shouldn't ask permission to spread the word ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's exactly right. So is the idea here we wait to hear from you on this? We continue to reach out to OAG, and then maybe we come back to discuss at the next working session. What would your thoughts be on next steps?
Well, I am still, hopefully we can receive some type of information. As soon as we receive information, then we can start to work with whether it's the staff or whether it's with each other to draft some type of document and some type of outreach plan so that we can all connect with our individual wards and our schools within our wards and our communities to ensure, our agencies, to ensure that this information is being disseminated to our communities. The biggest thing is just making sure that we're getting some type of response. And so I don't know if it's, if it's from us. I think this might be like a all hands on deck type of thing where, we're all reaching out
Absolutely.
to people who we can connect with, whether it's, this committee or whether it's the president and the vice president or, whoever it may be. I think we all should be reaching out to try to get some type of guidance. And I think that this is very important and it's time sensitive as well.
And Representative Bestlake, do you like the idea? If we can't get coordination through other agencies, are we able to look at maybe some best practices and work with the student advocate office that could come from the SBOE and the office of the student advocate, and maybe we can disseminate that information if we don't hear anything back because it is time sensitive?
Um,
Or is
I
that a
mean,
question for the president?
Yeah, I was going to just suggest that if that's all right. I think it's fine to reach out for information, gather information, and get that. But I think what we should do is have a coordinated response. And I think going through our president is the right way to go on that in terms of guidance we're giving out to families. I think is something that should be a discussion at the level of the president and the whole board because it's something that involves federal potentially interaction. So I support the urgency of this. I think it should be something that we work together on, but then coordinate a response through our president, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to discuss anything else on this topic before we move to adjourn, unless there's any other new business that any members want to raise at this time?
Can we move to adjourn?
Yes. Would you like to make that motion?
I would like the motion to adjourn.
Okay, I will second that motion. So all in favor of adjourning at this time?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimous to adjourn. That's 3-0. Thank you all for attending tonight, and I appreciate your participation and look forward to working with you on these issues.
And
Thank you
nice
all.
to meet you, Terry.
Thank
Yep.
you for having me.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you all, and got to get back to Abri. It's her birthday weekend.
Oh, well, happy birthday to her too.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care.
See you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.